Welcome to the Way of Wisdom podcast. I'm Sharon Webster, Kingdom Legacy Builder, prophetic voice, and licensed financial professional. This is the podcast where biblical wisdom, the biblical calendar, and practical financial stewardship meet. We are in the biblical month of Sivan, the covenant established month. The month Torah was given at Sinai. The month the Spirit fell at Pentecost. And this Sivan carries a special word that I believe is a now word for the people of God in America. Today, we are unpacking that word. It begins with a famine. It begins with a choice. And it begins with God telling one man to do something that ran completely against every natural instinct he had. Don't go to Egypt. Genesis 26 opens with a famine in the land. Not a metaphor, a real one. The kind that changes how people shop, how families make decisions, how businesses plan. The kind that makes Egypt look very attractive. Because Egypt always has a system. Egypt always has a solution. Egypt always has a way to manage what God hasn't fixed yet. And that is exactly the moment God showed up for Isaac. Now there was a famine in the land, and the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you." Genesis 26, 1 and 2. I want you to sit with that. God didn't appear to Isaac after the famine was over. He appeared in the middle of it, when the pressure was real, when the instinct to run was completely reasonable, when every natural voice was saying, "Go." But God said, "Stay." Not because the famine wasn't real. It was. Not because Egypt couldn't offer temporary relief. It could. But God was about to do in Isaac, required Isaac to remain in covenant ground. The hundredfold harvest, one of the most staggering economic reversals in all of Scripture, only happened because Isaac didn't leave. He stayed. He sowed in the year of famine. And God did something that had no natural explanation. That is the word for this season. Not a word against wisdom, not a word against preparation, but a word about where you do your preparation, whose systems you trust, and what ground you are willing to plant in when the conditions don't look right. Now, here's where I want to go a little deeper, because most people read the redigging of the wells as a purely spiritual picture. And yes, their spiritual application is real and powerful. But I need you to understand what a well actually was in ancient Near East before we spiritualize it. A well was not a metaphor. It was a survival infrastructure. It was territorial claim. It was economic power. Whoever controlled the water controlled the land, the trade routes, the livestock, the community, the commerce. Everything flowed from the well. Cities formed around wells. Treaties were negotiated at wells. Losing a well wasn't an inconvenience, it was an act of war. When the Philistines filled Abraham's wells with dirt after he died, they were not being petty neighbors. They were executing a deliberate economic strategy, assess, seizure, designed to dismantle covenant inheritance from the ground up. Fill the wells and you remove the covenant people's ability to survive, sustain livestock, trade, build, and thrive in that territory. And Isaac's response was not to relocate. It was not to find easier ground. It was to stay in the contested territory and start digging. Well by well, through contention, Esek, through accusation, Sitnah, until he reached the broad place, Rehoboth. Now the Lord has made room for us, and we will be fruitful in the land. That is a redigging testimony. That is what persistence through opposition produces. And here is what I need you to hear today. The wells God is calling you to redig are not only the spiritual ones, not just the prayer, the worship, the covenant history in your family. Some of what has been stopped up is practical, financial, generational, infrastructure the enemy filled in because he understood its value even when you didn't. The question is not whether God can restore it. The question is whether you are willing to stay in the contested territory and put the shovel back in the ground. There is a second figure I want to bring into this teaching because it gives us the other side of the coin. Joseph. Joseph is one of the greatest financial minds in all of Scripture. And the thing that made him great was not his ability to manage a crisis. It was his decision to prepare during abundance. 7 years of extraordinary harvest, and Joseph spent every single year building the infrastructure, the storehouses, the systems, the structures to hold what was coming and sustain his people through what was ahead. He did not wait for the famine. He built while he had capacity. That is the Savan word for your life right now. The waiting trap says, I will deal with the budget when things settle down. I will look into the insurance when I have more time. I will think about the estate plan when I am older or I have more money. I will address the debt when the income increases. But wisdom says, build now, while you have capacity, while the harvest is still coming in, before the lean season arrives. Isaac stayed in the covenant land during the famine, and he redug the wells. Joseph built the storehouse before the famine arrived, so the harvest had somewhere to land. 2 men, 2 assignments, 1 covenant pattern. Build before the famine. Redig during the famine. Don't go to Egypt either way. Friends, before I close today, I want to speak a declaration over you. And then I want you to speak it over yourself while you're listening. I will not run to Egypt. I will stay in my covenant land. I will redig what the enemy stopped up. I will sow in the year of famine. The hundredfold is available, and I am positioned to receive it. In the name of Yeshua, so be it, and so it is. Thank you for listening to the Way of Wisdom podcast. If this word is resonating with you, I want to put the full Don't Go to Egypt Now word in your hands, the complete framework behind today's teaching. The link is in the episode description. And if this has stirred something practical, questions about your financial structure, your legacy, the wells that need redigging in your household, a financial alignment review is your next step. Book the conversation at the link below. Until next time, stay in the land. This is Sharon.